About five is really close to my heart. If you follow my personal stories, you know this week I've been dealing with a little anxiety. I mean, who doesn't from time to time? But it just felt a little overwhelming for a couple of days. And what I realized is that I really have, like everybody else, up days and down days, but I also have systems and tools in place that I go to right away. I think, like you, I've been through a lot in my life, like all of us have been. And so I've had to come up with my therapist with things that I can handle, do, and manage. They're going to help me get to the other side of that anxiety. So tonight, I'm going to share the top five with you that I do regularly. I think it's important to understand that anxiety is normal. It's part of life, and all of us get anxious sometimes. And it's not that having anxiety is bad, it's what we do with that anxiety, and it's what we need to do if that anxiety gets overwhelming or crippling, right? So I've been fortunate enough to work with a great therapist at BetterHelp, and they've helped me with several steps that I can take. Tonight, the first five are: number one, identifying the source. What are you anxious about? That's not always particularly easy, but do you have certain triggers that in particular get to you, right? So for me, it's going to be, and maybe for you, certain times of the year, uh, times around experiences that I had that were bad, or similar experiences happening where they just trigger, like, oh, I hope this bad thing doesn't happen again, right? Even though it's impossible for that bad thing to happen again. It's fascinating how our minds and our bodies and our energy work. But if you can identify the source of your anxiety, it can really help, because then you can do number two. You can take action. And when you take action, you can kind of start thinking things out, engage in productive activities. Even if the productive activity isn't directed at your anxiety, like, I'm really anxious about money, so I'm going to go get another job. Maybe you're really anxious about money, so you're going to go on organizing around your house, and you're going to look for things you might be able to sell, but you're also going to clean up your house. That's adding another layer of anxiety to you. Does that make sense? So it's more about doing something, period, necessarily, than doing exactly the thing you need to do to calm your anxiety. It's also shifting your focus, right? It's just moving on to something else to the extent that you can. That doesn't mean the anxiety magically disappears. It means your brain has an opportunity not to stay so fixated on that. And then, of course, it's going to be something constructive that you're doing. So lately, one of the things I've been doing is just walking on my treadmill and watching a favorite show of mine. And that's been so helpful, because just the practice of walking 30 minutes a day has really made me feel better physically and mentally. It's kind of cleared away some cobwebs. I used to walk outside all the time, but then I got Charlie, who I absolutely adore, my 5-pound Yorkie. He can't really walk outside, right? He kind of saunters or strolls, or as we say in the South, he sashays. I need a good walk. So I've made sure I implemented that. So it's moving your mind to something constructive. The third thing is actually scientifically proven to help, and it's to practice deep breathing. You can just Google this or go on YouTube or TikTok, and you're going to find plenty of instructional videos. Find the one that works well for you. But what happens when we do deep breathing in through our nose and breathing out through our mouth, is it really actually reacts with our nervous system and scientifically can reduce anxiety. Next is going to be regular exercise. Now, I'm not talking about getting really freaked out and going for a 10-mile run when you don't run. This is actually maintaining a baseline of regular activity often. I'll admit that during COVID, I got particularly sedentary. I don't know about you, but it was like it was just normal to sit around and do nothing. And that did not serve my mental health well. It was really important for me to be physically active in some way. Now, I'm no athlete, and I actually don't typically work out, but walking alone or even a good yoga session are beyond cleansing for me. And so if walking doesn't sound good to you, if your knees say no, find a modified yoga class that works for you, right? Go, if you love golf, go play golf, right? Whatever it is physically that really works for you, but do it consistently, because then your baseline of your anxiety is always going to be a little bit lower. When you are consistently physically feeling better, getting rid of all of those toxins in your body, being able to shed water weight, being more clear, less brain fog, movement every day surely does that. A little bit of regular exercise can make a big difference. I read a study recently said 11 minutes is a great amount of exercise. So I don't want you to think that the idea here is, well, I have anxiety, so I guess I'm going to have to start training for that marathon. I mean, if that's your jam, go for it. But it can be as little as 11 minutes of exercise a day. And you might be surprised when you get started how it starts to calm your body and give you, again, that constructive refocus. And last but not least, you all know I'm a huge fan of using naturopathic things like essential oils and supplements. But I want to tell you about 3 specifically that I started working with this week that really helped me. The first is Cortistop. Cortistop is a supplement that's made by Young Living. And if you know, cortisol is what moves through our body, just floods our body when we get stressed. And an overproduction of that can make us feel anxious, even if there's nothing to feel anxious about. Cortistop helps us regulate that by interacting with our hormones and a woman's actual physiological makeup. They said here it works with balancing the body's natural systems and supporting the glandular systems of women. Sounds great to me. What I know is when I use it, it works. And what I love about Cortistop is, number one, it's got all natural ingredients, and it's a company that I really trust. But it's also that it just makes me feel a little less anxious. It's not like a CBD or a THC, or even like when I was on depression medication, I always felt like there was a little bit of a shroud between me and my real self. Cortistop doesn't make me feel that way. It literally makes me feel like my anxiety has been filtered through something before it got to me. So I'm still feeling the feeling, but it's just not quite as powerful or overwhelming. And over the 8-week period that you can take it, it definitely helps me feel better the whole time, which I love. They do advise that you go off of it for a couple of weeks and then go back on it if it's something that you want to be on regularly. The other thing I talked about in my stories in particular this week was the power of frankincense. It is one of the most high frequency oils, and I will place it over my heart and on the crown of my head. You can even take it internally. And frankincense to me is super calming. And then my number one go-to stress oil and anxiety oil is peace and calming. These frankincense and peace and calming actually come in the starter bundle. That's how I was introduced to them when I started Young Living. And I was just playing around with them and seeing, what smells do I like? I wanted my house to smell good, right? What I didn't realize is that there were actual chemical constituents, actual natural compounds that were reacting with all of my systems that really made me feel better. So I don't always use frankincense and peace and calming. I save them for when I really need them. So when I'm feeling anxious, I know I can grab them right away. For you, it might be something as simple as lavender. It might be something like taking a hot bath, or whatever your go-to thing is. But know that there are lots of natural supplements. I know a lot of friends have a lot of luck with magnesium, especially at bedtime. We have a wonderful supplement called Unwind that works with magnesium. And a lot of my friends are actually getting a lot of help just by getting the right amount of vitamin B. It's amazing what can be the root, the root of our stress and anxiety. So here are my top 5 suggestions to start with. I can't wait to share more with you tomorrow night. I hope this has been helpful. Shout out below what you do when you feel anxious and what might help you. And let's all come together to support each other.